everybody. Thank you for having me. This is quite scary. Where is she now? Well, first of all, who is she? So this is me speaking at SheSays. SheSays last time. This is the guy I opened with. That's Alan Partridge, if you don't know. If there's one thing you take away from tonight, I want it to be that I'm in love with this man. Some people might say it's a bit of a risk opening with a right-wing Daily Mail reading failed disc jockey, but I'm doing it again tonight, so I haven't learned anything. So basically things have moved on since I was last at SheSays. I still do a little bit of writing, of sorts, less creative, more angry letters to Arriva bus company and Twitter rants. Also still love shopping. I now class it under the umbrella of competitive sports. Before you judge me, if you've ever gone shopping on Watford High Street, you know that you need a gum shield, so there you go. But the one thing that hasn't changed is that my love for Alan still burns strong. So that's a little bit about me. I am a digital strategist. I work at a tech startup called Raising IT, and we build websites for charities and non-profits. And basically what I do is I dig into the weeds of what charity clients are trying to achieve, what their priorities are, their objectives, their challenges, and we basically look at how digital technology can help them. The bread and butter of what I do is I take them through digital strategy workshops, and we look into their purpose, their website goals, their audiences, and then we basically build what's called a sitemap, which is the content architecture of a website. We build that out on the wall with Post-its, and we validate it throughout the day, so we check that it's user-centered, that it's logical, it's intuitive, and at the end of it, they end up with a really lovely structure for a website. Quite a challenging day. You get the decision makers in the room, the CEOs and the trustees. There's sometimes clashes of ego, sometimes oddballs. One time, some guy started doing pull-ups from the roof rafters in the middle of me presenting. So yeah, you just kind of, you work with it, you go with it. So that's what I do for a living. Here's some numbers for you. I was trying to think of ways I could tidily quantify everything that's been going on since I spoke at SheSays about 4 years ago, and this seemed the best way. Over 100 kind of digital strategies developed now. 12 website redevelopment projects. Late last year, I spent 2.5 months in Melbourne. My company's just opened an office up out there, so I was setting up the digital strategy function there and training a strategist. And I've been working on one artificial intelligence app, which I will get onto in a few moments. So the career path. The path to being a digital strategist has not been a straight line for me. I started off, when I came out of uni, I published a book. I decided that I wanted to be a journalist, and nothing was going to stop me except a cripplingly expensive commute into Zone 1. And so I scrapped that. I was like, I need money. And I went to British Waterways as a staff writer. They're now called the Canal and Rivers Trust. As you can guess, it wasn't the sexiest of jobs. I was writing lots of nice fluffy articles for their website, responding to really irate boaters, very, very angry people. Seriously. One time we changed all the maps on the website to Google Maps, and they went like Wicker Man on us. Like seriously, I've never, that vitriol was incredible. So after a few years, I'd had enough of that. I moved on to, kind of bumming about a bit, temping, travelling. Then I moved on to somewhere that I'll refer to as Mount Doom. Now, I'm not going to name them by name. You could probably just, with a little bit of detective work, find out. Mount Doom was one of those jobs where, those jobs where you're heading every morning on the way into work, you're sort of plotting how you're going to have a minor injury just to escape going in. You're like, let me just step in front of this car real quick. Just a little, nothing big, nothing like coma, but, just a little kind of accident that would mean you wouldn't have to go in. They were all right. It was just, the people were fine. It was just a very highly pressurised sales environment and a lot of enforced smiling, which was just not my bag. So
I left there, and it was at that point I decided that I really wanted to move back into the world of charity and non-profit, and I threw myself back into it with gusto. I took on digital roles at Action for Children. I ended up managing their digital team. Then I moved on to Married States International as their global digital lead, which is just a fantastic, fantastic place. And I was, working with their 37 countries to kind of scale up their digital operations. And then I moved on to Raising IT. And the reason that I've kind of always maintained a professional connection with the charity world is pretty much summed up by this slide by Jessica Hagan. You know, the charity sector is not perfect. It can be worthy, you still get inept people, but you are literally working with people who are trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems. And, even if you're not doing something massively exciting, you're not making the world an actively worse place, and I think that's something to be happy about. I also think that the world of charity digital has changed so much since I entered 13 years ago. It's gone from being something that is just a kind of afterthought, something that's not that important, to now something that charities know they have to get on board with, even if they don't have the resources or the money. And, really, charity sector should be leading the way with online service delivery. The best sort of tech is tech that is accessible to everyone, tech that is engineered with people who are vulnerable and underrepresented at its heart. You start with them and you get it right for them and you get it right for everyone. And so the charity sector really has a vested interest to get this stuff right. Now that kind of brings me up to present nicely in my role at Raising IT, which I feel is kind of the perfect hybrid of being in the commercial sector, so not dealing with some of the frustrations that I did in the charity sector, like the internal politics and the lack of money, the lack of resource, but actually still getting to work closely with them and help them. Which brings me nicely to the big project. So I mentioned at the beginning that I've been working on an artificial intelligence app. That app is called Head Start, and it is basically an automated website builder that's imbued with strategic knowledge. That is to say that a charity can put in their details around their goals and their audiences and their challenges and their objectives, and Head Start will spit them out a sitemap that is automatically created for their needs, and it's a starting point that they can build on, so they could go live with a website in a matter of hours, get it working for them, and then build onto it. We've basically taken kind of all the tacit knowledge that we've built up over decades. It's in our head, all of the nuanced thinking that goes on when we have conversations with clients in the room, and we've had to codify that. We've had to convert that into explicit written knowledge. And we started off with what's called an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. We started off basically building something that worked for the most basic traditional client, and then building on more advanced stuff from there, testing it, getting it working, and then building in more advanced logic. It was really bloody hard to do. There were lots of spreadsheets flying around. I learned very quickly that version control is very important. I went Rain Man on my kitchen wall one day when I was mapping out the logic. But the cool thing is that we are actually seeing real results now. So it's taken, we're slashing the time it takes us to serve certain clients from, anywhere north of 5 hours to now less than an hour. And eventually we want to get that down to 0. The vision is for it to become a machine learning solution. So the next steps for us are for us to continue refining the logic, to take on some client feedback, and we're also working with our in-house data scientists to help train the logic. So, wisdom overload. There's another thing you learn about me is that I love The Office, both the American and the British version. So wisdom overload. Well, strap in. Basically, it all sounds very nice, but there's definitely been kind of challenges. There's been bumps along the road. When I was last at SheSays, thank God they didn't film it because I was very candid about some of my career challenges. I'm not going to go into all that now. You can find me in the bar afterwards if you want to know all that. But what I would say is that I would not change anything. I would not change any of the challenges and the difficulties, because they shape you and they help you build resilience. They help you learn what your red lines are and the sort of treatment that you're prepared to accept. And I also think that over the past 4 years, I'd like to think that I've learned a few things, which I'm now going to pass on to you guys. So here are some of my top tips, if you will. So first of all, anger can be good. I was told a few years ago by someone who's quite close to me that I was too angry. I'm an angry woman. And I took it really badly at the time. I took it as a real insult, and I have since just changed my mind. I don't think it's an insult. I think that anger is good for a number of reasons. First of all, it means that you're awake, you're cognizant to the world around you, and the fact that the world is imperfect, there is injustice, there is inequality. You need to be aware of that so that you can fight it. Second of all, I think that it's massively constructive. It can be such a force for good when it's used in the right way. There has never been a movement of change that's happened from people waiting patiently while people with power yield it. It does not happen. You need to get angry about these things. And third of all, you can't always go high. Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I think that's a lovely quote. I think it's noble. I try and aspire to that. But sometimes people are going to go low, and you need to get into the mud with them. I give you an example. A previous role, I created a piece of work that for me was quite career-defining. And a fellow colleague tried to nick it by literally just sticking his name on it and hijacking it. And now, had I have stayed quiet and just accepted that, that would have actually suited him. It would have allowed him to control the situation. You'll be pleased to know that I did not do that. I got really pissed off, and I told a lot of people, and I escalated it, and I wrested back control of my work. So, be proud to be an angry woman or man. Self-promote. So, this is going to stay up for a while as well. If you're doing good work, I urge you to tell people about it. And you do not have to go to Brent levels of obnoxiousness, okay? But tell people about it. I'm naturally an introvert. My favourite place is not up on a stage in front of lots of people. I find other ways to surface my work. I write project plans, I write think pieces, and I would really, really urge you to, find ways to elevate your work. I mentioned earlier that I had been to Australia and I'd done some training out there. I've basically packaged up all of those training activities that I created, into like a blueprint for how to do training, so that if Raising IT open another office overseas, I would hope that I would be the first in line to go out and deliver that training. So brand your brain power, present yourself as the expert, make opportunities for yourself. I think we're all really exhausted with the mediocrity of the Trumps and the Johnsons of this world, farting into a teacup and telling you it's perfume. You've got to self-promote, get your face out there, and promote others as well if you're doing good work. Listen. So this is a biggie. So this is Afua Hirsch, who is a mixed-race British journalist, and on here she's on her own show, which is what makes this even more laughable, and they're debating whether racism in the UK still exists. It does. And what's sad about this is that those 4 people are all shouting her down to try and say that it doesn't, to the one person on that panel who has lived experience of racism, of encountering racism probably every day of her life in some way, shape or form. That could have been a really good learning opportunity for them. And, I think that on this day, as more things are brought to light about the gender pay gap and diversity, and it's a hot topic, and that's great. I think if you're a company and you're keen to improve your diversity, that's very noble. But unless we are listening and collaborating with the people who bring real lived experience of some of these things, then it just becomes empty rhetoric. It doesn't become tangible actions. the charity and the tech sectors have a particularly bad record for diversity. In the tech sector, only 8.5% of senior leaders are black and minority ethnic women. And in the largest 500 charities, only 2.25% of leadership are women of colour. This is atrocious. And I think, we saw some slides in earlier presentations that showed why diversity in tech matters. There's loads of videos floating around there of different things, like the black guy who the hand dryer didn't work for him because it didn't pick up his skin tone. This stuff matters because it's shaping our world. And I think I've been to some talks where CEOs and founders, they say in one breath that they really care about diversity, and then in another, they oversee their entire recruitment process. From like vetting where the advert goes to having the final say to doing all the interviews. Unconscious bias is real. We tend to recruit in our image. We tend to recruit people with whom we think we have more in common. And so you have to really question whether you are the right person to be leading that whole process, or whether you should take a step back and hand the reins to someone else, collaborate with other people that have the knowledge of the situation that they can bring. So listen. Beware of bullshit merchants. We're a little bit swearing tonight. So the tech and the comms sector, every industry has its bullshitters. There are a lot in the tech and the comms sector. When I was first starting out, I went to a lot of events. I was really keen to just like hoover up knowledge and insight and network and all of that, and that's great. I definitely encourage you to do that. What I wasn't doing was taking some of what was being said with a pinch of salt, and it left me actually feeling quite deflated at times. I was like, why am I not like starting my own app at 21, or like why am I not doing this, why am I not doing that? And the thing is, like, the reality can sometimes be missing from some of these events, and I think that, you'd have people kind of stride out and talk about their epiphany and how they left their really high-powered, high-paid job to start this, company, and they had nothing but a tiny loan of 200 grand from their parents, and, and it's like, fail fast, like failure is good, and all this sort of shit. And it's like, yes, like failure is good. Failure can be an excellent learning experience, but it can also be detrimental if you don't have a safety net. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that try not to compare yourself to other people. Try to stay grounded in your reality and focus on your achievements, no matter how small. Focus on your journey, actually, try to take these things with a pinch of salt. Learn your risk tolerance as well. What are you comfortable with? Almost every successful person has had help in some way, and that's fine. It's a beautiful thing to pass the ladder down, but if no one's passing the ladder down to you, it doesn't mean that you didn't deserve it. It doesn't mean that you didn't want it bad enough. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. Okay, so focus on your own achievements. Do things like get a mentor, which is someone who is just going to give you the real reality of the industry, who is going to give you perspective and guidance, and is not there to showboat you. So, just try not to, comparing yourself is a terrible thing anyway, comparing yourself to others. But just kind of stay grounded in your reality and try not to, let yourself be left deflated by some of these things. Everything has an Instagram filter on it. And then find badass women. If you don't know who this is Greta Thunberg, who was the first young woman to walk out of school in protest at climate change. Yes, she deserves that. And honestly, she's kind of representative of just that young women fucking scare me today, actually. They're so fierce. They are so much more fierce and courageous and the stuff that they're doing at such a young age is amazing. By the time they're of age to run for office and things, I just don't think the world's going to know what's hit it. But really, find badass women. They will enrich your life. On this great day, as we're talking about, we're celebrating women, we're celebrating women's achievements. you do not have to look far. For me, I draw inspiration from, I follow a lot of women on Twitter who make me laugh, who teach me new things every day. My family, my mother who's into her 60s and is learning new skills even today. My sister, who's over there in the audience, who goes to uni here, she is an absolute boss. She's studying to be a photographer. And she's actually the inspiration behind me going to Australia, because she went off on her own to Berlin to do a photography internship. And I was just in awe of the bravery that took. And so when I was presented with that opportunity, I thought, you can't not take it, come on. And then my friends. I draw a great deal of inspiration and strength from my friends. They've got me through some of my hardest times, both personally and professionally. They indulge my rants, which is very important. They give me perspective. And, I really think that female friendships, female relationships are a kind of magic. And I think that whether you have one solid best friend or you've got a whole crew of people, just hold them close, because they really do enrich your life. So to sum up, anger can be good. Self-promote, listen, beware of bullshitters, and find badass women. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight.